So Bruce, after the disaster of '98 and the tragedy of '98, did you feel that that would be your last Hobart race? Obviously it wasn't, but was there any thoughts that, look, that's enough's enough, I've used all my cards?
No, I mean, I didn't think about it much because we just had so much to get through with the funerals and all that sort of stuff. And then I think the thing that turned it for me was that Kellett rang me and said, well, what are you going to do, Good? Are you going to do a Hobart again? And I said, yeah, what on? And he said, well, we're taking Sydney. And I thought, well, that's a nice, big, comfortable boat. And so I went home and said to my wife, I think I'm going to do the Hobart race again. She looked me in the eye and she said, I knew you would. So I went to Hobart on Sydney that year, and we had a really good hard running race, and I think it was just really, when we got down to Eden where we'd sunk, and we were in roughly the location, we put a reef over the side, and I think that was sort of, it was we'd been through a really hard year, and I think for me that when we laid that reef, I thought, there's nothing else I can do, so I think it's time to close the book on that chapter of your life and just get on. And then really, having done the race with Kellett, I really then realised just how much I did enjoy going to sea. Mm-hmm. So I kept going because I really enjoyed the companionship and the challenge, and I must say that every southerly that we got after that, or a sou'wester, I always treated it with a little bit more respect. Yeah. But we kept racing, so then I think after that Sydney stopped racing in the sense of doing Hobarts, and so I teamed up with Jeff Hill, who was an old working mate of mine who was a very keen sailor, and he'd just built a boat called Struth, a 49-footer by David Lyons, and so I ended up doing about 5 or 6 races on her, and then we bought a TP52, and I did a lot of racing in Southeast Asia with him, and we chartered a boat, did a Bermuda race, so did a lot of racing with him. And then when Jeff finally started to get into TP52s, I did one Hobart race in a 52, and then I thought, this is a young man's game, getting pretty old for this sort of stuff. So I think I didn't actually hang up my spurs per se, but if you'd have offered me a 100-footer or a nice old-fashioned boat, I probably would have gone, but not a TP52, thank you.
But the '98 race obviously changed the Hobart race and probably the sport forever.
Yes.
And they brought in very stringent safety measures after that, based around the inquiry and that after '98. And it's quite onerous now for a boat to enter the Hobart race as far as the safety equipment and the expense. Do you see that as a detriment, or do you see that's the way that it should have been and the way we should go?
I think that was the way we had to go. I mean, when we sank, and I'd done a lot of racing, I mean, I don't think I'd ever fired a flare. I'd never been in a life raft. So, and in the sense of the safety requirements now, I think they're an absolute must, and let's not kid ourselves, that Hobart race, as you all know, can be a bloody hard race, and I think the crew preparation and having to do a sea safety course and so on, absolute must, because you don't want people, if you do have to get off a boat, it's nice to know how a flare works, and it's nice to have actually been in a life raft so you know what the challenge is. Yeah. So I think those safety rules are, I give the club credit. I think we did a lot of work after the Hobart race and to make sure we banned a certain brand of life raft, which is the one that we lost our crew on, and then the club took the whole thing by and redesigned the rules, and I think they're an absolute must for the sport.
Well, talking of life rafts, you had another experience in a life raft.
Becoming a bloody habit.
Yes, but I mean, this ended very well, but tell us about this another experience getting into a life raft.
Well, I should sort of say to you that we were in a TP52 going to doing the South China Sea race, and I'll just lead in with this. And in the night we heard this almighty crack, and well, what was that? And we all looked around and we couldn't find anything, and we were doing a hard reaching, and I was blowing about 25 knots, and then about 3 o'clock in the morning the breeze had eased off a little bit, so it was quite comfortable, but still fairly hard sailing. And then we get another almighty crack, and the boat we just about laid flat. And fortunately, it's like when you're running down a wave and you're reaching, you either go that way or you tend to go upwind. Well, as we went down, we actually were starting to go towards the wind. The mainsail was released, so I had a good main sheet, and as quick as a flash released the main. So we ended up coming head to wind. And so we had no keel, and Grimesy was on board. So when we sorted ourselves out, we took the main down, and Grimesy goes over the side, comes up. We haven't got a problem, we've got no keel at all, like she'd broken off at the hull. So that was another near miss into a life raft. Fortunately, we got back to Hong Kong and didn't have to get into a life raft, but we were thinking about it. But then I was helping a bloke called Graham Richardson bring a 48-footer back from Hobart, and we had a lovely trip across Bass Strait.
Lovely boat, nice boat.
Nice boat, good strong boat. Boat had sailed around the world, and it was a good cruising boat. So we're setting off Green Cape, and the sou'wester had gone through, and we're in a light westerly, and we're all sitting on deck having dinner because it was a pleasant evening. And I must admit, we were having a nice drop of Pinot Noir from Tasmania. And Kero says to Graham, "I think you should open another one of those." So he goes down below to get the second bottle of wine and steps into 2 foot of water. And then, Jesus, that brought back some memories. So anyway,
It was relatively calm, wasn't it?
Relatively calm. Yeah. The breeze had gone. It was only blowing about 10 knots, and we're just drifting along nicely, not even spilling the wine. And all hell broke loose then, because we were trying to find out where the leak was. And we tore the boat apart, but we couldn't find it. And when Kero so I stayed on deck and steered, and Kero was at the radio, at the nav station. And I said to Graham, "This is not looking too good." And he didn't have, we couldn't get the motor going, we couldn't get any pumps working. And so I said, "Look, I think we better get ready in case we have to abandon boat. We don't want him mucking around the last minute." So we got the life raft up on deck and took the flares up with us as well, which is one lesson I learned from the Winston Churchill episode was we actually got all the flares up, and I had them all allocated on deck, and we had spare water. And the only trouble was when we gave the call to abandon ship, I didn't say, "Well, you take that when you go, and you take that." So we got in the life raft, we didn't take all that gear. When we got in the life raft this time, I allocated to each bloke who's going to take what. And of course, Kero hands up a litre bottle of Jameson, and that got put into a little locker on the side of the bloody boat where it wasn't visible. Anyway, when Kero's standing up to his armpits in water, I said, "Kero, get out of there, it's time to go." So we launched the life raft, we all got in the life raft, and then we're sorting ourselves out. And the first thing Kero says, "Where's that whiskey?" And it got left on the boat. Anyway, the boat drifted off. We didn't actually see it sink, but she said...
So how many on board?
4.
4. Mm-hmm.
So we had 4 of us in the life raft. And then we sorted ourselves out for a bit, and then we saw a ship on the horizon. And at that stage, we'd had no reply to our Mayday call, so we didn't know whether they knew we'd sunk or not. And so we saw a ship, so we fired off our flare, because we'd taken the flares with us, thank goodness. And the ship came alongside us and just sat there. And then we didn't have we actually had a VHF set, but as he was getting the life raft, it fell off his belt or something, and so we had no VHF communication. So lesson there, don't put it in the grab bag, so you know you got it. Anyway, the next thing we know, the cops arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning and picked us up, and we got out of that onto the police boat, and the big tanker had stayed there while we got rescued. And off we went. And I can remember the cops telling us, now I want you to sit on the floor and don't move, because once we get going, it's going to be pretty rough. And they had a brand new $4 million police boat. And I think this was the first rescue they'd ever done. And mate, did they open her up to go to Eden? We weren't standing up, I can tell you. We were skating across the top of the waves. And the funny story, my wife gets a call from Amsterdam saying, "Is your husband? Where's your husband?" "Oh, he's sailing back from Hobart." So he's definitely on board, because it said his EPIRB's gone off. And she said to the Amsterdam bloke, "Does this mean I'm going to have another sleepless night?" And needless to say, we got rescued and got into Eden, and we were okay. Yeah. And let me assure you, shippers, I do not want to get into another life raft. I'm not doing the sea safety course again, because I've told them I'm not getting in the life raft.
Right, well, let's hope you never have to. But Bruce, just take it from the solid racing that you've done, and you've had a wonderful career of 40 plus Hobart races, 2 outright victories, 2 line honours, but you also own a beautiful yacht.
I do.
The original Margaret Rintoul that was part of the Edwards family. It won a Hobart race line honours in '51, breaking the course record.
Yeah.
And you've still got that, and you race. Would you sail that in these days? And
still sailing. I mean, we're not racing it. She's too old. I mean, frankly, I'd never take her to Hobart again. She's too old.
But you did the 50th race.
We did the 50th race.
And you finished? And
no, we didn't in 50. We split the mast.
Right.
And we limped into Eden and got back, came back to Hobart. I mean, to be honest with you, it was a good thing we didn't, because that night in Bass Strait, it blew like buggery. And,
it did.
Jim Hardy, when we got to Eden, Jim Hardy was there. We moored alongside Jim, and we both looked at each other and said, good thing we're in here. Mm-hmm. So, but I've had the boats. I bought the boat in 1980. She was built in 1948 by old Austin Edwards. And Margaret Rintoul was his fiance's maiden name, hence that's where the name came from. And when old Austin was going to build the boat, I've forgotten who the club secretary was, but he said, you should get a good design. So he rode off to Philip Rhodes, and that's how we ended up with a Philip Rhodes design boat. She was built in 1948. She did the Hobart race in 49. Then she did the Trans-Tasman race that year. And then she did the Hobart race. She got line honours in 50, and then she got line honours in 51, broke the race record. And Hardy beat her in 51, so he won on handicap. And I've had the boat ever since. We do twilights, we do veterans regattas. Used to do a lot of merchant bankers races in those days. But other than just casual racing, I've always been lucky enough to be able to sail on some pretty good boats. So she was always my little play toy, and
Well, I know you play a big part on the classic yachts racing out of the CYC, and there's been a few good regattas, and there's an annual regatta. But just prior to Christmas last year, we ran a regatta for basically the 75th Hobart race, classic yachts.
Yep.
And a lot of boats, the old Hobart boats. I think they had to be built before 1976 or launched before 76. And of course, Margaret Rintoul fixed into that category. But to see 30-odd veteran Hobart boats, it was terrific, wasn't it, out there on that weekend?
It was a fabulous regatta. Yeah. And I think when we did that combined start up at Canai Point, and to see all of us there, milling at the beginning of the start, was absolutely fabulous. It was a great sight. Yeah. Brings back a lot of old memories too.
And you won your class, I think.
We did.
Did you know the handicapper?
I know the handicapper very well.
But Bruce, you the 75th Hobart, which was 2019, 6 weeks or so ago, you went to Hobart. Tell us about that trip.
We went. Tim Cox and myself went on Young Endeavour. It was my second trip on her as a backup radio relay boat. We had a really good trip down. The Navy do a fabulous job, and the radios on the Young Endeavour this particular trip were excellent. And JBW, fortunately the conditions were pretty good, so we didn't have to do a lot of radio work. We had one heart attack at the beginning on the first sked when Kellett couldn't had pulled a cord out the back of one of the radios, and I looked at Tim and said, I think we might end up doing this whole sked, you know. Anyway, fortunately Stake found the problem and fixed it, and we got that sked out of the way. We had 24 cadets on board from all walks of life, you know. They'd all done a previous trip on the race, because when they do take the boat to Hobart, they'd like to have the young cadets with some experience. We had 10 Navy officers on board, you know, captain, first mate, engineer, and able seamen. A fabulous chef, so we ate extremely well.
No alcohol?
No alcohol. We didn't get the shakes in 4 days, but we nearly did. So it was a dry ship, and they really looked after us well, and it was a wonderful experience on the square rigger. And with the weather we had, we actually got the old girl up to 10 knots under full sail, so that was pretty exciting. And but yes, most of it's motor sailing, because as soon as the breeze drops off, you know, she's a big ship, so you've got a motor.
Well, Gouldy, you've had a wonderful career sailing, a wonderful record, and it's great to see you still going strong. And all I can say is stay out of the life rafts. Because
I'll vouch for that.
Yeah, but so thank you. Continue to go well, and continue to enjoy your sailing.
Thanks very much, Hughes.